Rob Seeley is a veteran marketing strategist and the co-founder of OpenStage, an artist-focused platform dedicated to empowering musicians to own their fan relationships. With over 30 years of experience in sales and marketing, Rob has become a leading voice in inside-out marketing, a framework that prioritizes deep community engagement over superficial digital metrics. Under his leadership, OpenStage has empowered hundreds of artists, from emerging talent to global icons like Bad Bunny, Paul McCartney, Oasis, and Lana Del Rey, to reclaim their fan data, optimize revenue, and build sustainable, self-reliant businesses independent of platform algorithms. And I love it. Rob, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
I'm looking forward to this chat. It's been a while since we've talked, and I'm always interested in what OpenStage is up to and your perspective. You have a really unique perspective. So let's dive in. What's the biggest problem that you think is facing the music industry today, Rob?
Well, I think one of the biggest problems is the fact that artists don't know who their fans are. So, I often speak to music managers, and I start most meetings by saying, you do not know who your fans are. And as a result, artists don't own the fan relationship. And the fan relationship is probably the most important thing that they do own. And the relationship between an artist and their fans is very special because they're not consumers, they're fans. And, we often forget because we're jaded and we all work in the music industry, but music is amazing. Music is the most human experience of them all. And this brilliant music that people make touches our lives, it soundtracks our lives. And as such, the industry as a whole has generally treated fans as consumers. And the result of that is that the industry is undersized, that there is revenue that's left on the table every day. And that's a problem when most artists are struggling to make a living.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're saying that the biggest problem is that artists don't know their fans, and because of that, they're leaving money on the table. There's opportunities to actually generate more revenue. Is that why it's a problem?
Yeah, it's a huge problem. If you look at something like there was a Goldman Sachs report a few years ago that highlighted that sport is nearly 100 times bigger than the music industry, which is astonishing given that music has about twice the amount of fans that sport does. So even Goldman Sachs was saying that there is a huge amount of money being left behind. And we work with hundreds of artists from small garage bands to so Paul McCartney and everything in between. And we've unearthed some amazing examples of revenue that people didn't realize that they could achieve, chart positions they didn't realize they could achieve, ticket sales they didn't realize they could achieve, just by having a direct relationship with their fans and finding out what people wanted.
Yeah. So the direct relationship is the ability to actually contact and interact with those fans at scale.
Yeah, at scale, but it's the approach. So quite often, I'm sure we've all signed up to mailing lists for our favorite artists, and that can in the main be quite a dry, grey experience. So we can be treated like consumers. Here's another hoodie for $75 you can buy without your name on the email. What we have at OpenStage is the tools where you can actually engage with people. So, fans want proximity. They want to get closer to their artists. They want to feel recognized. They want to feel part of a community. They want to collaborate on stuff. So in OpenStage, you engage. You don't just broadcast at fans. You actually lean in. You ask questions. You give the fans an experience, and you can react to that experience accordingly.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to diving into this. But before we get there, how did you stumble onto this problem? How did you, Rob Seeley, come onto this idea that there was this gap between artists and their fans and communicating with them and having those relationships?
Well, there was a couple of things, and it isn't just me. Obviously, there's a huge team at OpenStage that are all music fans, but the majority of the founders are not from the music industry.
Right.
Personally, as a fan, there's an artist in the UK called Paul Weller that most Americans have not heard of, and he was in a band called The Jam and the Style Council, and I've seen him dozens and dozens of times. Every time he comes to my hometown, I've seen him, and that's only been 5 times in my lifetime. I live just outside of London, and on the 6th occasion he came, I couldn't get a ticket. And this is way before the days of OpenStage, and I thought, how does he not know that I'm his number one fan, and I live in this town, and I can't get a ticket? And I sort of let that go. The second thing that happened is that my son became involved in the music industry. and he started a band. And because the band were all underage, I sort of helped them out with management. And it was at that point that I realised a couple of things. I read a report by Citigroup called "Getting the Band Back Together," and in that report it said that artists net about 6% of what they gross. And I thought, oh my God, my son's never going to leave home. How am I going to get him out of the house? So we calculated there was 5 members in the band. For them to earn minimum wage in the UK, they'd have to be grossing £2.5 million for him to earn £30,000. And you're thinking, wow, there's something gone very, very badly wrong here. And
Wow.
then when we looked at it, really, it was because the fan relationship is held across many, many different platforms, with social media, with ticketing companies, sometimes with the record label. And it means that the all of the exciting stuff that I've described is kind of lost, because the artist and the fan are not having a direct relationship.
Hmm. So you're talking about sort of how the interactions that fans are having or they think they're having with songs or with artists is fragmented across all these different platforms. So it's like each relationship is actually broken up across platforms. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I think it's very frustrating for the fan, because they are across multiple platforms. I think most fans don't understand how social media works as a commercial user of it, and the fact that you can miss a post because we know the reach is now under 3% is frustrating. Oh, I
Hmm.
didn't know so and so was coming to town because you didn't see the ad, you didn't see the post. I also think, as an artist, they want to deliver something that's on brand for themselves. So, we've got artists that are pop artists, and we've got people like Massive Attack and Radiohead who are very, very protective of their brand and of their fans, but in a very different way. And I think it's very important that people have the tools to deliver something that is consistent on brand for them, direct to their fans.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So you've named this problem that there's this disconnect between artists and their fans. They don't own the relationships, they don't have the data. How can artists and their teams go about fixing this?
Well, there's a number of ways. First of all, they can ask the people that currently hold the data to share it with them, and that's becoming more and more common. That was problematic a few years ago, but some of our bigger artists have made that easier for some of the smaller artists. But also, the greatest advantage they have is the fans want to have a relationship with them, not with OpenStage, not with you, not with any of the DSPs or the social media platforms. They want to have a direct relationship. So the best results is where we see people go out and say, we want to make this happen. This is going to be an exciting place to be. We want to welcome you into our world. And I can give you countless examples of people that have had mailing lists that, have been underperforming for 10, 15 years.
Hmm.
And overnight they've 7x, 10x, 12x their mailing list using OpenStage, where they have branded it as themselves, and you are signing up to the artist. And you have to make it exciting. You have to sell the sizzle. You have to sell the advantage of being inside my world.
Got it. Yeah, so it's some of them already have some of the data, but they're just not leveraging it in a way that feels connected to the fans. And so there's sort of a way that you can attack your email list so that it actually feels more connected. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so with all of this data, again, it is problematic because to be fair to managers, they're not used to having it. So when they have got it,
Mm.
it's fairly easy just to treat it as just a mailing list and say, right, I'm just going to send to all. Um, we see the greatest results where people can actually look at and identify tiers of engagement within their audience, and they can then tailor their comms and the fan experience accordingly. So we have a segmentation tool within OpenStage where you can use all of the data that you've got to create the exact audience that you want. And that can be used to get the right product into people's hands, but also to get the right message, to get the right results. So you could create an audience of people that have done a certain action and those that haven't done a certain action, and you could incentivize them towards doing different things and give them a different experience. So some of the more better users of the platform will know who their most engaged fans are, and they're getting very, very high open rates on their emails because they know the most engaged fans want to hear from them more regularly, want to hear in a way that's appropriate to them. And also, fans talk to each other. So if a fan base starts to go, do you know, I got a different email to you, suddenly they realize that they're being recognized, they're being understood, and they react really, really well to that.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned that you and some of your other team members are from other industries, which really intrigues me. When I've talked to you about OpenStage in the past, I feel like I'm hearing somebody who's applying something that's been kind of tried and tested elsewhere and really become effective, and you're applying it to the music industry in a way that's more suited to the music industry. What else can the music industry learn from these other industries? Where did you come from, and how do we apply this here in music?
Well, I came from financial services, and financial services in the UK has gone through a lot of changes, and I won't bore your listeners with all of those. But there was a piece of legislation at the end of the 90s, which was basically saying you need to know who your customers are. If you're recommending financial products, they need to be appropriate to their financial needs, and in order to do
Hmm.
that, you need to have some understanding of their financial needs. And we were desperately unhappy about this. But when this data started coming in, we realized that this was gold dust. We realized that we actually understood our customers' needs and we could build products around them, and that some customers could afford little and some could afford a lot, and we could act accordingly. And then in financial services, the greater resource was actually given to D2C than it was to advertising. When people worked out that social media was a bit of a con. It wasn't the promise that it wasn't the new world that we'd been promised. It was just basically an advertising platform. All of the concentration was in knowing your customers. And knowing your customers is probably rule 101 in most industries in the world, apart from the entertainment industry.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So what do you think the music industry can pick up from all that from other industries?
Well, I think as I'm trying to educate the market, I think what they can learn is having an understanding of their fan base, controlling the fan experience, rewarding fans for doing the things that are important to you in a way that are on brand for you. Will raise the spend within your business. If you put value in to your fan base, you will get more value out. And I think that is just a fact. And we're seeing artists on the platform that do that regularly 2x, 3x, 4x, 5x their direct sales without even
Yeah.
selling. They don't have to
Wow.
sell. They're just building equity with their fans, and that's working accordingly.
Nice. So you're seeing a lot of these things emerge with specific artists, with artists that come onto open stage, even just industry managers, labels, people that you're talking to out there. How are you seeing specific artists starting to use the types of ideas you're talking about? Can you give us examples that are out there that will really paint a picture for us for
Yeah, I think
what this could look
some of
like?
my favourite examples are with some of the smaller bands. So, I'll give you a few examples. There's a band in Scotland called Tidelines that people are welcome to go and have a look at their Instagram page. They've got about 30,000 Instagram followers. I'm sure you've got more than that, Dimitri. And they're a Celtic Scottish band. So it's very niche, and their dream was to play Barrowlands in Scotland. And Barrowlands is a legendary venue, Iggy Pop, David Bowie, Roxy Music, 2,000 capacity, very, very cool. And there wasn't a great deal of confidence around their team that they could actually fill that venue. They actually asked their fans whether they could play there and whether they would come. They asked them if they could do a 3 night residency. Everybody laughed them out of town when they put the idea forward. But not only did their fans tell them that they wanted it, they sold 6,000 tickets. They did 3 sold out nights at the Barrowland. And I think that's quite astonishing. We have a band from London called Only the Poets who wanted to do a mainland tour of Europe, excluding the UK. They had loads of data saying that they had thousands of fans in Germany, in Poland, in France, in Spain, in Portugal. And unfortunately, the promoter didn't believe the data that they had and said, we're going to put you in the smallest venues across 17 cities. That tour sold out in about half an hour, and the band went back to the promoter and say, well, we need to upgrade these venues. We've got people that want to come to the shows. They did that. They sold tens of thousands of extra tickets. That tour sold really, really well. And in fact, Only the Poets played in Cologne a couple of weeks ago, which was one of the towns, in front of 2,000 people, which is quite astonishing. So, where smaller artists have the data and the direct relationship, and they are leaning in and asking their fans, if we did it, would you come? You can see that it's working. And then you can go right to the top end. You know, we did some astonishing things with Lana Del Rey around her Boston show, where she pretty much handpicked the fans that went to that show. Oasis in the UK, in their general sale for their shows last year, 99.95% of the tickets that they distributed directly to their fans in their UK pre sale stayed off of the secondary market. And we're enormously proud of that, because that is an understanding of your fans and putting your fans first.
Yeah, it's interesting. All of those examples, I think the three examples you just gave all had to do with live music, testing demand, but going directly to fans. And you've gone from saying that the the general experience that we're having with social media is you probably won't even see a concert's already booked, and there's a good chance you won't even see the post announcing that concert. You might miss the concert because you didn't even know one of your favorite bands is coming to town, because there's a 3% chance that you'll see the post
Mhm.
as you said. And to flipping the script entirely to say, let's just skip all the social media, we won't even book the show yet, we're going to go to the fans and say, do you want to see us here? And if the answer is yes, then we go and book the tour. That's like a transformation around the economics of touring.
It absolutely is the kind of touring intelligence we can get now. You know, artists can do independently run their pre-sales through OpenStage. They can set it up. They can set up the design. They can set up the flow. They can decide what data is collected, and that they own and control that data going forward. And I'm under NDA, but there's a fantastic example of an international artist who I can't name, unfortunately, where she did a tour, she did a pre sale with us, and before the tickets have even gone on sale, they had the confidence in the data that they collected that they could do second and third nights, they could play in regions that they weren't sure of, they could withdraw dates that they knew were now not going to work. They've now planned a second leg of that tour around much bigger rooms in different regions with confidence, because they have first party data of people, hundreds of thousands of people when there was only tens of thousands of tickets, that have said, I want to see the show. Now, we also know the particulars of all those people. We know where they live. We know their listening history. We know their relationship with the artist. And it means the other commercial opportunities around going to a show, these people need to travel. Of that tour, there were 2,500 fans that need to get on an aeroplane. Now, in that instance, we could have phoned American Airlines and said, there's a deal to be done here. So if you've got this information, there's a lot of commercial opportunities and engagement opportunities with fans that are being lost because that information isn't held by the artist.
Yeah, amazing. I bet there's examples beyond live music too, but we've got to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm curious to ask you about fan communities. We'll be right
Okay.
back. Okay, we're back. Rob, really interesting examples you gave us before the break, and how this can really transform the economics of touring and really raise the revenue for artists and their teams and the music industry as a whole. I'm curious, we haven't talked yet about fan communities, and you've really talked quite a bit about making this connection between artists and their fans. What are your thoughts on how artists are really connecting even at a deeper level beyond just the live thing? What can happen in terms of building fan communities once they have these relationships and this data with the fans?
Yeah, I think there's a frustration on both sides. I've sat with artists who've become quite emotional when they've looked at their fans on open stage, because this is unfiltered love. This is unfiltered
Oh, wow.
appreciation. This is so authentic. And many artists, when they post on social media, immediately have to turn their phones off, because the reaction they get is quite toxic. You're ugly, you're fat, you're this, you're that. It's not nice. And I think a lot of that impacts on fans as well. So if you're a fan of Youngblood, for instance, you may post online, you may get trolled about that. So I think
Mm.
more and more artists are looking for somewhere where, I think, being part and belonging to something, and that shared identity that you have with other people, is really, really important. And I think more and more people want to feel part of a community, want to feel that they belong. somewhere with people that have that shared interest. And we've been testing this out, and we've now launched our fan base API, which allows artists to take control of that, particularly online experience. So, using our API, they can plug that into their data set, and they can decide which fans have which experience across their different products, their music, their videos, their live shows, but also the online experience. And I think probably the greatest exponent of that is Youngblood, who has launched Youngblood HQ, and he's had a fantastic response. It's only been a soft launch so far, but he's created a founders list, and the response has been overwhelming. But his whole brand is about people that feel outside of the norm, people that struggle with their mental health, and he's brought people into a safe place where he can post content. People can comment on that content. People can share that content, and have a sense of belonging together. He's opened a shop in London where people can come. They can buy. They have access to products that other people don't have access to events, etc. They can claim a free coffee. But what's important about that is that that's completely on brand for him. His team have built something that's, in his design, the features, the ones that he wanted. We've also done a project with Gorillas where it's a very, very different thing. It's a clunky 90s video game, deliberately so. But they are controlling the access in the same way. And we have a number of other artists that are going to launch in the next few months, where they're tired of how their website looks. They want their fans to have a better online experience, and they're going to use our technology to make that so.
So it sounds like, say Youngblood versus Gorillas, they've created different experiences, but it is a destination for fans. But then it's linked back to the open stage fan data, so you can actually see who's interacting at what level,
Hmm.
and what kind of engagement, or what's doing really well there, etc., which is way different than when you post on social media or inside a streaming service and don't really know like what the reaction is, or you can't really test anything, or you have trolls who are interacting versus a curated group of fans. Am I getting that right? Is that what the fan base
Well,
AI
exactly.
API is?
It reports on the fans' activities within the system, but it also gates access. Some people want to gate access against particular thresholds that you might meet, but other people want to set commercial gates that it could be a paid for model where if you pay for this, you get further access and you get a deeper experience. That really should be up to the artist. So we just wanted to provide the technology where if you have a data set that is telling you who your fans are, then you should be able to use that data set accordingly to control the fan experience.
Yeah. Yeah, great. I'm glad we got to dig into some of those exact specific examples. It's really helpful to start to hear like what are artists actually doing, or what have they done. It helps, I think, other artists and management teams think through like, oh, could we do that? Let's widen out though, Rob. Where do you think things should go in the music industry over the next 5 years?
Wow, that is a big question. Um, well, I think there's still a lot of work to be done. I am obsessed. I'm a zealot in everything that I've just said. So there is a lot of stuff that needs to be done. People need to be able to make a living in the music industry. AI is a major threat to creativity that needs to be dealt with. It's complex in a way that sort of baffles me and scares me. But I do think as humans, we will want a human experience. We like to come together. We love to listen to music. We love to be touched by music, enthralled by music. So I do, I am going to repeat again. I think we have only just scratched the surface in what we've achieved at Open Stage in opening up this fan relationship. And I think there's a lot of work to be done there where artists can properly understand their fan base, to really maximize the effect of the massive affection that these fans have for them.
I'm curious, what do you think stopping artists and management teams or even platforms from for allowing this from happening? Like what's the challenge Why isn't everybody just jumping on it? What's stopping them?
Well, I think there are good reasons. People are, being a music manager is one of the hardest jobs in the world. Yeah. I mean, they are, they're dealing with artists, which can be difficult. And they're trying to run a business, and they have done it in a way traditionally where they have leaned on their partners to help them with different aspects. More and more so, they have taken a lot of those responsibilities away from them and taking it upon themselves. They manage multiple artists, they have small teams, they have small budgets. It's really, really difficult. I think where a manager is data hungry and the artist wants to have a direct relationship with the fan, then I think they are open to these ideas. But there are people that are hugely successful that have never done any of these things. I would argue they could be more successful if they did do these things. But they quite sometimes say to me, "Well, why should we?" So we work on the basis that while we create these amazing case studies, while more and more artists start using OpenStage, for instance, then other people will see what they're doing and wonder why they can't do it.
Hmm.
And hopefully that will start their journey on understanding that there is another way, there is a better way, there is a smarter way, and it will make them more money and it will make the fans happier.
So in a sense, the thing that's stopping them is just not knowing what's possible.
Well, I think even sometimes, it's very, very change in life, and the older you get, it is difficult. Changing your ways is difficult, particularly when you are extremely successful. And I do understand it. So, we've got a lot of work to do at OpenStage to make it a lot more simple. It should be, and we will work, relentlessly to make these actions that I talk about a lot more simple.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have one last question for you. This year, 2026, I'm starting to ask people, what would it take to grow the total addressable market of music? Because I think as the whole thing grows, artists will benefit, hopefully, although that's that's a piece of it as well. What do you think it will take to grow the music industry and benefit artists?
Can you guess what I'm going to say?
Maybe.
Okay, so I'm going to say it. So it's glaringly obvious. You need to know who your fans are.
Hmm.
You need to control the fan experience. If you do that, and if you put value into your fan base, you will get more value out, and that will grow the whole industry. And that will affect everyone, not just the artists, not just the fans. It will affect everyone in the industry. The tide will rise. So put value into your fan base and you will get value out. But you can only do that if you know who your fans are and you control the fan experience.
Amazing. Rob Seeley, Open Stage. What a blast to talk to you. I feel like I learned so much and really inspired by what you're doing with the business, but also just how you're helping us think about how things should change. This has been a blast. Thanks so much for joining the podcast.
Thank you very much.